instructions we passed across yesterday. And then the reminder, of course, this morning. So I want to hope that you have done the quiz already, and that it's as easy as they come. Why we try to do that is we try to see if our participants have an idea of the topic we're about to take, so that there will be at least better refresh in the course of the training. And where you are so knowledgeable about it, maybe you help also the presentation to help enlighten the rest of us, so that we make this program as interactive as possible. And of course, at the end of the training also, we also have another post-lecture quiz to see whether the training that we've had, whether the lecture we've had has made any impacts at all on the presentations that we made. So it's some kind of baseline before and after to see if there's any impact on what you've been able to learn. Right, having said that, when you are done with the test, you can post, screenshot and post your scores for us, so that we'll have a look at where you were able to score. Right. Having said that, you see on our screen a picture of an elderly gentleman. You see a picture of an elderly gentleman on the screen with a young lady who seems to be advising her that if your salary is your only source of income, you are one step away from poverty. Okay, that's a very telling advice indeed, because what it's suggesting is that for all of us, for us to be able to stay above the poverty line, we need to have multiple sources of income. A single source of income in this country today will not make much of a difference. So the advice is given, as much as possible, make sure you have multiple sources of income, so that you'll be able to be effectively support yourself and your family. We know what the salary situation is in the country today. Not too long ago, the country had a minimum wage increase. But of course, we know the impact of the minimum wage. It didn't make much of an impact, because soon after, the COVID situation came, the COVID pandemic came, and it blew everything out of hand. First, the price increment in prices of almost everything, inflation setting, then the cost of fuel also went up twice so far in the last 8 months or thereabout. And all of those things had telling effects, as it were, on the income of people, because it had to tell, as it were, on the cost of transportation and then the cost of food items in the market. And these are all things that impact on any individual. So it says that if you are dependent, for example, on just the minimum wage, then you know that basically you're bound to run into some kind of problem along the line. So the advice by this elderly gentleman should be welcome to all of us, so that whether you're in the public sector or private sector, the advice is that you should try as much as possible, wherever it is, whatever kind of work that you do, so also seek another means of income. Okay, we're familiar with labor unions when during their protest action, they tell you that take-home pay can't take them home. It goes to show how small and pathetic the take-home pay is. If your take-home pay cannot take you home, it takes you halfway and then you are abandoned. So for those of you who have registered for this program, it is like you have somebody like this elderly gentleman advising you already, suggesting that, look, even if you are employed or self-employed, you should have multiple streams of income. If you are employed in other public or private sector, find some other means of generating income. Try to acquire some skills, and then start another line of business. Okay, that line of business will supplement what you already get from your regular salary, and that is the one way you'll be able to survive in this very difficult situation. And this is not only applicable in Nigeria; it's all over the world. We hear stories from our friends and relations who have left this country and who come back to tell us stories, or call to tell us stories of how they have to be working 2-3 jobs at a time. Okay, leave one job to the next to the next. That is their one way of being able to sustain themselves. Okay, because if they have to rely on one source of income alone, then of course they will not be able to pay the bills, and then of course be able to support themselves and their families. And that is a very, very important advice that we should all give ourselves. For us on this program, well, this is the very first topic that we normally take every morning, every Monday when we start this course. We'd like to start by giving this very, very important advice, and to assure you that you've taken the right decision by coming to participate in this program with the hope of accessing the NISA microfinance loan, which you can go into some other means of livelihood, some other source of income. So it is a very, very important decision you have taken, and we want to commend you for that. All right, having said so, let's go ahead now and look at our topic for the day. Entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for Agnes. That is the topic for today. The training that we are giving you is an entrepreneurship training. It's an entrepreneurship training program. And it is for the Agnes loan program. Being an entrepreneurship training program, it is important that we start by laying the foundation on what entrepreneurship is all about. What is entrepreneurship? Okay, how to define entrepreneurship, the concept of entrepreneurship, who is an entrepreneur, what does an entrepreneur do, and then the kind of skills you require for entrepreneurship. Of course, the fact that entrepreneurship is a lifelong task, not a momentary short sprint or a marathon. Okay, and then of course break down what Agnes is all about. What is Agnes? The loan facility you are trying to access is known as Agnes loan scheme. Okay, the NISA microfinance Agnes loan scheme. So we want to break down what Agnes is, what it entails, its components, and why the people who initiated it decided to float this idea and what it sets out to achieve. So these are some of the things that we'll be looking at. This lays the foundation and prepares us for to manage small businesses. Down the line, we'll also be looking at topics like feasibility studies and business plan, financial planning and basic bookkeeping, effective sales and marketing strategies, then of course business law, then compliance requirements in doing business in the country. So these are the topics that will be taken within this 5 days training. All of it with the intention of preparing you on how to manage your business going forward. If you're able to acquire the loan, these are some of the things that you require in managing your business. And that's why it's important that we get to pay close attention to our discussions this morning, and then be able to make some sense of all the presentations that we'll make during the week. All right, having given us a background to this topic, we'll start by looking at the training objectives. Training objectives for this course, this particular topic. First is understanding the Agnes loan scheme. To understand what the Agnes loan scheme is all about, to expose participants to the objectives, components, and processes of achieving the goals of Agnes. Okay. What are these objectives? What are these components? And what are the processes for achieving the goals of Agnes? To understand the concept, thirdly, to understand the concept of entrepreneurship. Okay, we define entrepreneurship. We define who is an entrepreneur. And let you know what an entrepreneur does. We show some examples of entrepreneurs and all of that. Trying to expose participants to the skills. What kind of skills do you require for entrepreneurship? And then, of course, to prepare participants, prepare you for a life of entrepreneurship. Prepare you for a life of entrepreneurship. Okay, so that's basically what we'll be looking at. That's the training objectives. Right. So let's the training outline. The training outline. Let's look at the training outline. Defining AGSMEIS is objectives, components, and processes of attaining its goals. Defining entrepreneurship. I've already talked about that. The types of businesses and vocational skills. Then considerations before starting a business. Before you start a business, what are the things that you need to consider before you start a business? Hurdles in the path of starting a small business. What are the hurdles in the path of starting a small business? Okay, whatever it is that we do in life, we find that there are some basic challenges here and there that we face. Okay, so what are those hurdles? What are those challenges that we might find in our paths? The sources of funding for small and medium enterprises. Okay, what are the sources of funding? One of the reasons why we are in this program is we want to assess one of the sources of funding. What are the other sources of funding? We look at the other sources of funding that are available to us when we want to start our business, right? Okay. Right, so let's start first by this, my stuff has come up again and all that. Sorry, just a minute, please. Let's attend to something. Right. Sorry. So right. So we'll start by defining AGSMEIS. We want to define what AGSMEIS is all about. AGSMEIS is an acronym, as you can see. An acronym is a word that you form from the first letters. First letters taken from a sentence or from a sentence or a chain of words. So AGSMEIS stands for Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme, with AG standing for Agribusiness. Then of course, SME stands for Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So that's what AGSMEIS stands for. It is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria and supporting the federal government agenda towards the promotion of agribusinesses and medium and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. So basically what we're saying here is that the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Committee of Bankers, they are the owners of NISA Microfinance Bank. And Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the bank. CBN through NISA has 40% shares in that same bank. And NIPOST has 10% shares. NIPOST 10% shares is through its contribution to the provision of office space for the bank in all of its branches. We're all aware that NIPOST has offices in the 774 local government councils we have in the country. And in each of these locations across the 774 local governments, NISA is supposed to house or have a branch of the bank in each of these offices across the 774 local government areas. The whole essence is that NISA Microfinance Bank is meant to be a rural bank. We're all aware that the Nigerian local communities, our villages are highly underbanked. There are communities, there are places you go in the country today where there is no banking services whatsoever. So to be able to fill that gap, the bank went into this agreement with NIPOS to be able to provide accommodation to host them in all of their various locations. So wherever it is that you are in the country and there is a NIPOS office, you are expected to see a NISA microfinance branch there. And they are supposed to be within those communities to serve the local communities by providing them the necessary banking services. And then, of course, to be a source of providing soft loans for peoples within this community in their areas of especially in the areas of agri and other related SME enterprises. So that's basically why NIPOS was brought into this scene. But for the Committee of Bankers and CBN, it is their own way of supporting the federal government towards the objective of diversification of the economy and then the provision of employment opportunities. Diversification of the economy in the sense that we are aware that Nigeria's economy is a mono economy. We are aware that Nigeria's economy is dependent, as it were, almost solely on oil revenue. And over-dependence on any mono product across the world is always a very challenging business model. Because anything that happens, if that sole mono business enterprise has any challenge, then of course we know the country's economy is going to have a lot of problems. And that is exactly what the federal government, the Nigerian government is experiencing. Because of our dependence on the oil sector, the petroleum sector, Nigeria's economy is always at the risk of having major problems and challenges. Because each time there is a dip in the price of oil, there is a fall in the price of oil in the international oil market, then Nigeria's economy faces a challenge of a downturn. And that is exactly what Nigeria has been experiencing since the COVID pandemic. Okay, we're all aware that since between March to around July this year, the entire world was shut down. The entire international economy was shut down. Most of the major industrial hubs in the world, from the US to China to EU, were all locked down because of the COVID situation. And as a result of that, all economic activities were also locked down. International travels came to zero. We saw pictures of aircraft lining up in international airports all over the world, none of it flying, which means there was no economic activities, no travels, no tourism, nothing whatsoever. And all of these economic activities as well are driven by the oil, by the oil as the means of powering the economy of the world. Okay, so we saw pictures of tankers and tankers of crude oil on the high seas that could not be delivered in their various countries of where the requests were made, okay, because of the shutdown of the economy of the world, okay. And as a result of that, most of the economies of OPEC countries, the oil producing and exporting countries, were faced with major challenges. Most of the world economies went into recession. Nigeria's economy also went into recession. In fact, in the last 8 months, Nigeria's economy went into recession twice. We went into a recession in the early February, and we came out of it. And then, of course, just about 2 weeks ago, Nigeria's economy went into recession a second time. This is as a result of the fall in oil revenue, okay? Because of the fall in oil revenue, Nigeria had to experience that kind of situation. And of course, this is as a result of our overdependence on oil. Okay, so basically, the Committee of Bankers and CBN are supporting the federal government's initiative, which says that, look, we need to move away from overdependence on oil. We need to move away from the mono-economic model which we have and diversify our economy into other areas where we can be able to be self-sustaining. We are all aware of the situation in a place like the UAE, for example. The UAE also, like Nigeria, started as an oil-producing country, but today, oil is the least contributor to the UAE's economy. The UAE's economy today is dependent more on tourism than anything else. Tourism and property, and that is basically the hub and international travels. That's basically where they have diverted their attention to. So in Nigeria's case, the government is looking at other areas, and these are the areas of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises. These are the areas of economic activities that it believes that you can diversify into and be able to have a sustainable economy that will not be reliant on just one type of economic activity, and of course be able to survive the shocks of the economic downtime each time there is a major hit on the oil sector. And then the second component, of course, is for employment purposes. Okay, because of the COVID situation, we know that many companies shut down, many organizations laid down their staff. As it is in the government today, there is an embargo on employment. You know, most companies, most banks, for example, shut down their branches, and in shutting down their branches, they also laid off many of their staff. We're also aware that in this country today, many of our young graduates have left school after service and cannot find any means of employment. Okay, so what basically this initiative is all about is that for those who are young graduates who cannot find jobs, there is a way that government can be able to provide them easily accessible loan at collateral-free level with very, very low interest rate so that they will be encouraged to access these loans and start their own businesses. In starting their own businesses, they will become self-employed and will be also be able to employ one or two others. The same also is applicable to those who are losing their jobs as a result of the COVID situation. Many of those who are losing their jobs in banks, for example, have been encouraged to take up to try and access this loan and then be able to start their own businesses along the line also. So that is the reason behind the Committee of Bankers and CBN introducing this Agnes loan scheme, because they've seen it that, look, this is our own way of supporting the federal government's policy initiative with respect to diversification and for purposes of employment. By diversifying, of course, we are able to build up a much stronger economic base, and then, of course, providing the necessary employment which we require for our teeming youths, teeming population, teeming unemployed youths, and the many who are losing their jobs as a result of the COVID situation and the economic downturn of the economy. All right, what are the objectives of AGSMEIS? We have defined AGSMEIS. What are the objectives of AGSMEIS? One, first, objectives of AGSMEIS: one, to ensure small and medium enterprises have access to finance. Second, to generate more needed employment opportunities in Nigeria. Three, to boost the managerial capacity of agribusiness and SMEs as pipelines of growing economic enterprises that can become huge corporate organizations. And then, of course, to develop agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural development. What we're saying basically here is that, first and foremost, we have seen that for most people who want to start their own businesses, either in SMEs or in agric, one of the major problems that we always have is that of finance. Those of you who are on this program today, for example, you have business ideas. Okay, you have business ideas, you have ideas of what you want to do. Many people don't even want to go seeking paid employment. They want to be on their own. They want to start something on their own. They have business ideas and they think that, look, if we follow this path consistently, we won't be able to make something out for ourselves. But the problem they have is access to finance. Okay, sorry for the little break. We're having some network issues around here. All right, so we're looking at the objectives of AGSMEIS, and we have talked about access to finance. The second is to generate much needed employment opportunities, and I did indicate that I've already mentioned substantially about this. We are familiar with the situation that we have in the country today, where so many of our young Nigerians who have graduated from tertiary institutions and after their service find that they cannot find means of employment. Okay, no white collar jobs for them, and many of them have been roaming the streets for many years on end without any source of employment. We've had all manners of stories about people having to pay heavily for them to be employed, and of course, those who do not have relations in high places are not able to get employment. Okay, today we're familiar with situations where the federal government has virtually placed an embargo on employment, but we see all manners of recruitments going on. And when you ask the question, they are told that it's replacement that is being done, or you have to have somebody on the inside to be able to help you with those kind of replacement exercise. So one of the ways the Committee of Bankers and CBN thought they could be of help is through this AGSMEIS loan scheme, where those who are interested, people are encouraged, young graduates are encouraged to try and access this loan facility, and then of course be able to acquire the loan and then start their own businesses. The expectation is that if you're able to have access to 5 million naira loan, you should be able to employ one person. If you're able to have access to 10 million, you are expected to be able to employ at least 2 people. You know, the federal government has a policy that it wants to take 100 million Nigerians out of unemployment within the span of 10 years. Okay, so these are part of the strategies towards achieving that goal. Okay, and of course, I've mentioned about the many Nigerians who have lost their jobs as a result of the COVID situation. Because of the general lockdown, of course, no economic activities going on. Incomes for most of the businesses have gone virtually collapsed, and of course, they could not continue to maintain the kind of payroll they have been maintaining before the advent of the COVID situation. So all of these things are instrumental. Some of the reasons why the Committee of Bankers at CBN decided that, look, we can start this initiative, this scheme, and then see how we'll be able to help the government in the areas of unemployment by generating employment through the provision of easily accessible loans at collateral-free level and at a very, very highly moderated interest rate. So that is one of the objectives of the scheme. That to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses. Yes, of course. Like I did say, I highlighted the number of courses topics will be taken at this training: feasibility studies and business plan, financial planning and effective bookkeeping strategies, effective sales and marketing strategies, business law, and all of that. These are courses that will help people who are accessing this loan with how to manage their own small businesses. And remember, it is from these small businesses that today grow tomorrow's major corporations. So we have to start small. Start small, not at the very top with large organization. You start from small and begin to build gradually towards becoming a major corporation. And it is this these preliminary courses that we provide that is able to help most of our participants with how to manage their businesses. Okay, so to develop agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural value chain. Agri is a very, very vast field. Agricultural business is a very, very vast field. When we talk about agriculture, there's always a tendency to look at crop farming, to look at just farming. But agricultural value chain it goes beyond just crop farming. Agricultural value chain entails the entirety of activities within agricultural businesses that start from the farms. Okay, farms to management of the business of agricultural businesses, to the value additions, those things that you add to agricultural produce, to the factory floor, okay, to the marketing. All of this constitute the agricultural value chain. Okay, so when you talk about agriculture, some people might go into the crop farming itself, others will be in processing, others will be in marketing. These are all part of the agricultural value chain. And of course, what the government is trying to do, what the Committee of Bankers and CBN are trying to do is that everybody should be able to identify his own core area of strength. Some might have as their core area of strength the crop farming itself. There are so many people who have come on this program, who have trained on this program, who simple aspiration is how to go about farming. Okay, so they want to go into rice farming, for example. They want to go into crop farming, to yam farming. Okay, those are areas that resonates very well with them. Others, of course, are looking at processing. They want to go into rice processing. They want to go into cassava processing. They want to go into gari and fufu processing. Those are their own areas. Those are their areas of strength. In fact, while there are others who want to go into the logistics of management, okay, moving things from the farms to the market, they are those who want to add value. They have SMEs. They want to add value to the crops. Okay, so if you are into cocoa farming, for example, you want to move away from just the cocoa beans to adding value to the cocoa beans, so that if you are exporting it, you are exporting with additional value, not just raw cocoa beans. So these are the various areas that we talked about. These are the various activities that encompass the agricultural value chain. And then, of course, these are with this kind of knowledge, with this kind of understanding that you gain from this training. Of course, it goes a long way into sustaining our agricultural practices. So these are some of the objectives of the Agnes loan scheme. These are the things that we do to be able to acquire the skills that we require in agriculture. Okay. Right. So components of Agnes. Let's break down the components of Agnes now. What are the various components of Agnes? Remember, we have defined Agnes as comprising agribusinesses, small and medium enterprises as a vehicle for economic development and employment. So let's look at the agribusiness component of Agnes. In 2019, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only by industry at 27.38%, and then services at 49.73%, which is basically 50%. So, although Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenue, Nigeria is predominantly an agricultural society with approximately 70% of the population engaged in agricultural production at subsistence level. Okay, what we're saying basically is that agricultural contribution to the GDP is a massive 21.91%. Okay, surpassed only by industry and services. Nigeria, as we said, is dependent on the oil sector for all its budgetary revenue. Nigeria derives 95% of its export earnings from oil and 70% of government revenue from the oil sector. Well, in terms of GDP contribution, GDP contribution to Nigeria's GDP is less than 10%. Okay, this in 2015 it was 9%. In 2016 it was just 8%. In fact, the recent NBS statistical releases, it shows that Nigeria's oil contributed just about 8.63% to Nigeria's GDP. So when compared to agri, you can see that agri is so massive. Okay, at 21.91%, that's double the contribution of oil to Nigeria's GDP. So despite the fact that oil sector contributes more in terms of revenue, but in terms of GDP contribution, it is agri that is doing better. And over 70% of Nigeria's population, which is basically the population of our rural areas, is engaged in agricultural production at the subsistence level. Okay, at the subsistence level, most Nigerians are at the village level. Most Nigerians are involved in agricultural production on one form or the other. Okay, but when you look at the oil sector, the number of people who are involved in it is not up to 10% of Nigerians involved in the oil sector. Okay, so it is this trend. That's the trend of of agric, the trend of agri, the trend of agri, the trend of activities in the agricultural sector is contribution to the GDP that the government wants to leverage on. Government wants to take advantage of the very, very large opportunities that are available in the agricultural sector, the very large contribution of agriculture to the GDP, and then of course see how it can move away from oil and diversifying the nation's economy to the agricultural sector. This is what informed the current government effort and devoted energy to initiatives like the Entrepreneurial program and now the Agnes loan scheme. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Entrepreneurial program. The Entrepreneurial program is another initiative of the CBN, and that is again targeted at providing resources, finances, and implements and support, okay, and essential support to rice farming. We're all aware that Nigeria used to be very, very dependent on the importation of rice from all over the world, especially from Thailand, from Myanmar, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all these Far East countries and India. Okay, so what happens is that while we concentrate on importing this rice from these countries, we are leaving our own fields empty. Okay, we are empowering the farmers in other countries, providing them all, sending almost all our foreign reserve to those countries to import rice, while our own farms, and we have very, very adequate farmland in the country with very, very good weather to support rice farming and very vast fields across the country, but we are not able to farm it. Okay. No country ever does a thing like that. No country relies purely on importation of its food. Okay, with a population of over 200 million Nigerians, how much are we going to spend to continue to import food? There's no way our economy will be able to support that kind of situation. So since the coming of this government, it has moved away. It has decided to ban the importation of rice, and then of course to encourage the production of rice in the country. And that is what led to the Entrepreneurial program. Okay, and with the Entrepreneurial program, we are all aware of the massive investment in rice production today in states like Kebbi, in states like Zamfara, in states like Ebonyi, Benue, Anambra, Ogun, Lagos, and places like that. And today, what has happened within the last 3 years, Nigeria's rice production has turned a new leaf. Today, Nigeria is the largest producer of rice in Africa and the 8th largest producer of rice in the world. Sooner or later, if the government persists in this approach, Nigeria will will be able to fully provide its rice needs and be able to export rice to other countries in Africa and across the world also. And that is part of the initiative, that's part of the Entrepreneurial initiative. It is this same kind of initiative that the Agnes loan scheme also stands for, providing easily accessible funds to Nigerians so that they can go into both agricultural businesses and the SME sector. So that's the contribution of agric in that respect. So this drive is in recognition of the contribution of agriculture to economic development and economic growth and development, in providing food for the expanding population, increasing the demand for industrial products, providing local exchange market, local foreign exchange earning for import of capital goods, increasing social income, in providing employment and improving the social welfare of citizens. What we're saying basically is that the government recognizes the importance of agriculture, okay, in the area of economic development, economic growth and development, okay, because with the contribution of agri, we are able to see its contribution to our GDP and then of course the growth of the country. Of course, it also helps in supporting the meeting the food needs of our expanding population. With a population of over 200 million, there is no way Nigeria can be dependent on importation of food. Okay, any country that depends on the importation of food, of course, knows that it is doomed for failure. Okay, because you will never be able to have the resources, you'll never be able to have enough foreign reserve to depend on the importation of food. That talks so much also about issues of food security. Okay, food security is very, very critical. A nation that is not able to feed itself cannot defend itself, because that will be used as a weapon against you. If you have to depend on importing food from other countries, if he wants to bring you down to his knee, all he has to do is to block blockade the importation of the export of the food to your country, and you're as good as finished. So any country that is worth its name must be able to provide, must be able to feed its people. And the one way you can only feed yourself is by making sure that your agricultural production is able to meet the food needs of your country. Nigeria has vast land, very vast land, very, very fertile land across the entire sub-regions, across the entire regions in the country. There's no part of this country that is not capable of producing one form of food item or the other, from the south all the way to the extreme north. So that has to be harnessed, okay? And that is what agriculture is doing for our people. And of course, increasing the demand for industrial product, because with more and more of agricultural production, our industrial is also contributing towards our industrial products, because we are able to provide the necessary raw materials we require for our industrial production. And of course, when we are able to add value to our agricultural produce, which we export, we are also able to earn more foreign exchange, with which we now can be able to import capital goods to our manufacturing sector. That is what that section means basically. In terms of social income, of course, we've seen what the employment situation has done. We hear the stories of what's happening in states like Kebbi State today, where so many of our young Nigerians who previously were walking the streets, pushing wheelbarrow, doing all sorts of menial jobs on the streets of cities, have gone back to the farms in those states, and today they are able to earn a whole lot of money. Many of them are buying cars, buying machines, sending themselves on pilgrimages and getting married and things like that. So all of these things are social incomes which agriculture is provided. And then, of course, the employment situation, which has substantially turned around for many of these young people. And in the process, of course, the welfare of citizens have been increased. So it is these gains that explain the need to support the growth and expansion of agri and agri-allied businesses and its associated value chain. So the gains from agriculture is why the AGSMEIS loan scheme and why the government is supporting the expansion of agri-related businesses in the country today. So let's look at the second component of AGSMEIS. We have looked at the AG, which is the agribusiness. Now let's look at the SME, the small and medium enterprises. The SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, as well as important contributor to economic, to employment, economic and export growth. What he's saying here is that here we are not just talking about developing countries. We are talking about developed economies. Okay? The sentence says that the SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies. Okay? Major developed economies, not major developing economies. So even for the developed economies, is the SME sector that is the backbone of their development. I like to give the example always when I discuss this session about some of the companies that we see today that we never believe were SMEs, but they all started as SME. Okay, today when you mention Apple, okay, it's not Apple the fruit. We are talking about Apple Corporation, Apple Company, the Apple. Okay, Apple has moved from being Apple Computer to Apple Corporation to Apple Inc. to just Apple. It has become a brand. It's a brand today that's simply identified as Apple. The moment you say Apple today, hardly anybody thinks about Apple as a food, but he's thinking about Apple as the electronic giant, okay? The electronic giant, the computer giant, okay? The smartphone giant, okay? So that is what Apple is. But Apple started as an SME. Between 1976 and 1977, Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak started the Apple computer, okay, as SME in the garage of their parents. But today, the Apple has moved from being Apple Computer to Apple Corporation to Apple, okay? And it is one of the major revenue earners in the world today. Apple today is a $2 trillion revenue company, okay? When just one single company is a major revenue earner, $2 trillion revenue earner. Nigeria as a whole, our entire revenue is about $448 billion. So compared to just one single company, that is what this company that started as an SME is all about. Okay. Today, when we talk about Microsoft, there's no computer or no appliance of this that you have today that you do not come across one Microsoft component in your system, in your device. Okay, and Microsoft also started as an SME in the garage. Bill Gates, in the garage of Bill Gates' parents. That's why he started the Microsoft business. And today, Microsoft is a world-renowned company, and its owner founder is the world richest person, and it is a major employer today with over some monumental contribution in terms of revenue earnings in the world today. The same thing also, if we talk about Facebook. Facebook just started in 2004, but today, 16 years down the line, Facebook is a major revenue earner, over $6 billion revenue on a year-to-year basis, over 2 billion users, and that is a major corporation across the world today, and a major revenue earner for the United States of America. So that is what the SME sector is all about. So when we look at the SME sector, we say, look, the Committee of Bankers and CBI saying that, look, we can also develop our own SME sector to be a major backbone for the economy, for the Nigerian economy, for Nigeria's economic growth. Okay, so according to the Nigerian SME survey by PwC in 2009, SMEs contribute 48% to national GDP and account for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. So this is quite massive. We looked at the agriculture just now, and we saw that the agriculture's contribution to the GDP was 21.91%. But here we are seeing the SME sector. The SME sector contributes 48%, which is double what agriculture contributes to the national GDP. And it accounts for 96% of businesses. So 96% of the businesses we have in this country, most of the businesses we have in this country are SMEs. Okay, and then of course 48% employment. So most of those who are employed, okay, apart from those who are unemployed, most of those who are employed, or 48% of those who are employed, are in the SME sector. So this is monumental. So SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total of about 17.4 million enterprises. Okay, they account for about 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of manufacturing sector in terms of enterprises. So this indeed is a very, very, very massive statistics that we have here. Over 50% of industrial jobs are SME driven. Okay, 90% of manufacturing sector, okay, are in the SME sector. As SMEs. Okay, so it goes to show that at least the SME sector in Nigeria, if it is harnessed, will go a long way in making the world of a difference and turning the story of Nigeria just like it has done for the developed countries. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with small and medium enterprises development agencies, AGSMEIS-7The, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of jobs, improve per capita income, increase value addition to raw materials supply, improve import earnings, and then enhance capacity utilization in key industry and unlock economic expansion and growth. So these are indeed massive contributions we are looking at here. Okay, it says that if we are able to develop the SME sector to the position where we need to put it, 80%, it has the capacity of absorbing up to 80% of the jobs. So all the issues that we are talking about, unemployment and all of that, substantially most of the employment opportunities will be created in the SME sector. For those of you who are on this program, if you are able to start your own business, you start your own SME, the people you are able to employ, the one or two people you are able to bring in, will add to this 80% of available jobs, which the SME sector is providing, is supporting. So that is what it means essentially, okay? And of course, it has a capacity of improving the capital income, value addition, because the raw materials that we produce from our farms, from the ones that we need to export, the value addition in those ones will increase the import, the revenue earnings of the country, and then they improve the import earnings as it were, and then the capacity utilization in key industries. This is the one way that we can unlock the economic gridlock and then expand the economic sphere in the country. So that is where the advantages of the SME sector, and that is an area that we need to look at. Okay, so it is this potential which the government wants to explore and expand, but you realize that there is still a missing middle, which is the SMEs still find it hard to access funds. So what we're saying basically is that, look, the government recognizes the potential of the agribusiness sector and the SMEs, and it wants to explore and expand it. But it realized that, look, there is what they call the missing middle. And this missing middle is access to funds. Okay, so to be able to achieve this goal of expanding the SMEs and then the agribusinesses, it has to find a key. It has to provide the funds. Okay, that is the missing middle. Okay, so government says that, look, what are the things that we need to do to be able to fully explore and expand these two sectors that could change the face of things in this country today. So the Agnes loan scheme is therefore government's response and solution to the missing middle. The Agnes loan scheme is government's own interpretation that, look, this is the solution to the missing middle. This is the solution to the lack of access to funds, okay? By providing affordable and easily accessible funds to this vibrant and explosive sector with a high potential to be a major backbone for Nigeria's economic development. So it's saying basically that, look, with this Agnes loan scheme, we will solve the problem of the missing middle. With this Agnes loan scheme, we will solve the problem of lack of access to funds, okay? By making those funds available that are easily accessible, that are collateral free, that are of low interest rate, that are 7 years tenure for repayment period, okay? So if we are able to do all of those things, it's one of the easiest, one of the lowest, cheapest source of fund that you can think about. Okay, because if you go to the commercial bank today or other microfinance bank trying to access their funds, you will be required to pay about 26 to 30% interest rate, which is very, very exorbitant. So what kind of business are you going to do to be able to take a loan at 26, 30% interest rate and you will still be able to break even and come out? Unless you're, of course, going to enter into some kind of dubious scheme, there is no way that you'll be able to borrow money at that high interest rate and still be able to make a success of that business that you want to go. You find that you just end up working for a banking institution, just trying to stay afloat, but nothing will come your own way. So the Agnes loan scheme is that scheme which will be able to fill that gap by being easily accessible, low interest rate, longer tenure period, and with that we'll be able to accomplish that which we seek to do. All right, so we've come to the end of the first section of this paper, defining the Agnes, giving a breakdown of what Agnes is all about, its objectives, its components, and why the initiative was introduced in the first place. Okay, the next section is we'll be moving to is entrepreneurship. But before we do so, we normally like to break at this point so that we'll open the floor if you have any questions to ask, so that you'll be able to take questions from you before we proceed to the next section. So we'll now welcome questions from participants before we proceed. Thank you. Yeah, David Olusei, you have any question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have any question?
Yes. No, sir. I'm actually enjoying your lecture this morning. Thank you very much. No, sir. No, sir.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for doing justice to the topic, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Welcome. Egba, Margaret, any questions from you guys? Egba, I'll mute your mic, and if you have any question. All right, go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Egba. How are you?
I'm good. Actually, I enjoy your lectures. I've gained a lot of knowledge. I'm really charged to go and do a great job, because if you are determined and if there's access to funds, I think the rate of poverty in this country will be reduced drastically. So for now, I don't have any question. But I believe as we go further, we'll see how we can get more knowledge and achieve our purpose. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome. Yeah, thanks. Welcome. Madam Margaret, are you with us? If you have any question, you can mute. Let's hear your voice. If we can't see your face.
Okay, I actually, for now, I don't have any question.
All right.
But I will say that I really enjoyed everything that you taught us today.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So go ahead, then we'll proceed so that we'll look at the other sections of the paper. Okay. Right. Andreas, come on. All right. Okay, so we're in the second part now on entrepreneurship. So can somebody help me define entrepreneurship? What's entrepreneurship? We have a chat box. You can go to the chat box and then type your understanding of entrepreneurship, your definition of entrepreneurship, and then let's continue from there. What's entrepreneurship? Yeah, any comment yet? Can't see any comment in the chat box. Somebody help me define entrepreneurship. Yeah, I'm still waiting. Nobody has volunteered. Okay, so let's go on. What is entrepreneurship? Maybe as we go along, somebody will be inspired to give us some definition there. All right. Entrepreneurship is a process of starting and running a business enterprise. So each time you start any business, you're running any business, okay, you're already into entrepreneurship, okay? Anytime you invest capital, that's invest your money in resources like people to develop products and services or to create viable commercial enterprise, you are into entrepreneurship, okay? So resources, we know people are also resources. When you define labor, you're talking about capital, you're talking about people, all those are the components of what constitutes labor. So each time you take your money, okay, and then you invest this in people, okay, in order to be able to develop any item, any product or services, you are already involved in entrepreneurship. Okay, it is the capacity and willingness to develop, to organize and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. Here's another dimension entirely different. Okay, so we're saying that whatever it is business you want to go into, there is a profit motive. There's a profit at the end of motive at the end of it. Okay, so long as at the moment you are able to take risk, okay, in order to make that profit. Okay, so you are ready to develop, to organize and manage a business, and then take the risks that come with managing that business in order to make a profit. Of course, you know that you are already into an entrepreneurial activity. So it is the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risk. Okay, because there's nothing ventured, nothing gained. Okay, so without venturing, without giving any attempt, there's no way you'll be able to achieve anything. Okay, so if you want to make any success in life, you want to accomplish a goal, then you should be ready to take some risks that come along with it to be able to accomplish that goal. So that is what entrepreneurship is all about. Okay, right. So the most obvious example of entrepreneurship is starting of new businesses. And what is the entrepreneurial spirit? It is characterized by innovation and risk-taking. And it is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. What we're saying basically is that the world is a global market, okay, with countries competing for a share of that global market. And it is the citizens of these various countries that are innovating, they are creating, they are taking all the risk to create products, okay, which they go into the international global market to be able to carve a niche for themselves, to be able to carve a small market for themselves, okay? So the challenges that we have today, the contest we have today between the Americas, between the US and China, for example, across the entire world, is the struggle for a piece of the market, global international marketplace. Okay, China, for example, most of Europe and America have abandoned Africa, but suddenly China has come with a new focus on Africa, coming into most African countries, meeting up with their infrastructural deficit, building rail lines for them across the continent, building new airports for them, providing them all manners of support and loans to build up their infrastructure and facilities. This is because they realize that, look, there is a vast market for us to be able to exploit here. Previously, the European markets, Europeans were the ones who are dominating Africa. But because of the challenges we had over time with them, because of all of the kind of crisis of debt, indebtedness and debts and all manners of debt relief, which has been characterized the relationship with Europe, most of them are pulling back. But certainly with China coming into Africa, we find now all manners of conferences between Africa and India and Russia and the EU countries, all of them developing new interests all over again. So each country and its citizens are working hard at creating and innovating to be able to also have a share of the international global market. The same also with Nigerians. Nigerians are not left alone. We know, for example, our own entrepreneurs, people like Dangote, who are also all over Africa. Okay, Dangote has over 11 cement factories across Africa. We know of Globalcom that has rolled out its services, telecom services in many African countries. Okay, and all of these things are happening because everybody wants a share of the international global market. It's not the nations themselves that are doing that, but the citizens of this country, but they are representing these various countries. So that is what the entrepreneurial spirit is all about. It's about innovation, it's about creating, it's about taking the risk, and of course, pushing the frontiers of your own nation's share of the international global market. That's the entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, who is an entrepreneur? Who is an entrepreneur? Will you call yourself an entrepreneur now? Okay, David, will you call yourself an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of investing his money, time, passion in development of a business or several business enterprises. That is who is an entrepreneur. He's ready to take the risk of investing his money. Okay, you are trying to access a loan facility now. Okay, you are ready to take the risk of taking this loan. Okay, to invest the money you get from this loan in something that you are passionate about. You are willing to give of your time for that line of business. Okay, to be able to start a business, to be able to make a profit out of it. That is who an entrepreneur is. Anybody who is ready to take the risk of investing his money he borrows from a bank, from partners or from relations or from shares which he placed in the stock market, to be able to, and then give of his time and his passion. Okay, it's time to pursue his passion of developing any business enterprise. That is who is an entrepreneur is. Okay, that is who an entrepreneur is. A definition that also resonates with me is by Reid Hoffman, that an entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. So this is a literal kind of definition. We all know what a cliff is, okay? We all know what happens when you jump off from a cliff. From the picture you have seen there, Anybody who jumps off from that kind of cliff will know the risk the person is ready to take, okay? Which means you are ready to take all the risks you can to be able to achieve a goal. So you are ready to jump off a cliff, okay? All the way fall, all the way down to the river and the river and then beneath it, okay? But at the end of it, you want, by the time you come out, you've accomplished a goal. You've built a plane for yourself along the way down. Okay, that is the extreme definition of who an entrepreneur is. But of course, it is represented by the risk taken and then by the profit motive or the objective. Okay, so that is what an entrepreneur does. That's who an entrepreneur is. One who is ready to take a risk and at the end of it, accomplish a goal. Okay, the Wright brothers, for me, typify this definition by Reid Hoffman of an individual entrepreneur who is ready to jump off a cliff. The Wright brothers are the people who started the whole idea of an airplane today. When they started, everybody laughed them off, scoffed them, and said it was not possible to possibly build a massive machine with metal body that would be able to fly in the sky. But they started with this contraption, which you can see in the picture, and they were able to fly it. It crashed severally, but with consistent practice and trial, they were able to start this aeroplane, which you can see today. Today, what the determination of the Wright brothers, their vision, their foresight, their determination, and we have what we have today across the world with the jumbo jets all over the place. They are able to fly thousands of kilometers within hours. We'll be able to bring continents together. They're able to fly from Africa to Europe in 6 hours, from Africa to the US in 8 hours, okay? And across the world within hours before the close of day across the world. So that is the vision, that is the determination of an entrepreneur. That's what an entrepreneur does, okay? The Wright brothers typify their typical entrepreneur. On the screen, I don't know how many of you know the individual who is on the screen now, but he represents for me the modern day Wright brothers, okay? The modern day entrepreneur who is ready to jump off a cliff and then at the end of it is able to build a plane. He is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a South African American. He's a South African, originally a South African. His father is still in South Africa. His mother is Canadian, back in Canada, I believe, or he is based and resident in the US, where he is the founder and owner of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautic engineering company that specializes in the building of rockets for international space travel. Okay, Elon Musk so far has succeeded in taking 2 sets of astronauts to the International Space Center in orbit. Okay, the first one was some months ago. He took them out. They stayed for about 6 months and came back about 3 months ago. The most recent was just about barely 3 weeks ago. And in fact, the first black astronaut was on that team. They are currently in the International Space Center, and they'll be there for the next 6 months. His own aspiration is, in the interim, to be able to take tourists to space, okay, to the International Space Center. People to go on tour as tourists to International Space Center to see the universe, okay, to see the sphere, to see the cosmos, to see the stars, okay. But his dream, eventual dream and vision is to be able to take people to Mars, to colonize Mars and settle in Mars. That is his dream. That is his aspiration. That is Elon Musk for you. Elon Musk also is into the building of electric cars, okay. I'm sure you've heard about Tesla. Tesla is an electric car, okay, which does not run on oil, on fuel, on petroleum products, okay? And it is a visionary move in support of climate change. And then, of course, the pollution caused by carbon monoxide in the atmosphere, the ozone layer, the depleting of the ozone layer, the issues of climate change, which is taking a prime position today. And the whole aspiration is by the year 2050, most cars in the world will be driven on electricity, not on oil. Okay, so each time in Nigeria we talk about oil. And of course, one of the reasons why we're talking about diversifying from the oil economy, because in the next 30 years, the picture is that our oil will be all over the place, just like oil from all over other countries, with very, very few buyers, because most of the machinery that is driven by oil will be driven by electricity. And that is why you see this major push. If you go to countries like China and India today, you see before the advent of coronavirus, people masking because of the quality of air in those countries. Okay, in India, just about 2 weeks ago, by 12 noon, people were using their headlights because of smog, because of smog or smoke all over the place. They could not breathe easily. They have to wear masks. And vehicles, pedestrians and motorists had to use their headlights, all because of smoke, all because of pollution, carbon pollution from industries and from cars and all of those things. So people like Elon Musk are championing the cause of the new mode of transportation and the new mode of driving machineries across the world. So that is an entrepreneur. That is somebody who is bringing the change to the world. Okay. So who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is any individual who starts a new business venture or a company. He arranges the deals and takes the risk in order to make a profit or create social change. Okay, so there is a profit motive component, and then of course there is the social change component. Okay, people like Elon Musk are trying to create social change. Okay, changing the way the world lives, changing the way the world moves forward. Okay, from petroleum engines to electric engines. Okay, for moving into space, and people like Facebook, for example, Mark Zuckerberg are also people who are involved in social change, okay, which is Facebook and Instagram and all of those kind of social media outlets. We saw the impact of those social media outlets during the NSAS program, where young men were able to mobilize their colleagues themselves and their colleagues across the country through the power of the social media. That is social change being created. And we were able to communicate themselves, take a position, the 5-on-5 resolutions which they passed on to the government, but they never met in one location. But because of the power of the social media platform, they were able to come together on the cyberspace and create all of these demands from government. So that is what social change, that is what entrepreneurs are able to do. They go there for the profit motive, and then of course some to create social change. What does an entrepreneur do? What does an entrepreneur do? As an entrepreneur, what do you do? Okay, or as an aspiring entrepreneur, what do you do? Okay, an entrepreneur identifies a need that no existing business addresses and determines a solution for that need. Simple. That's what an entrepreneur does. Okay, he comes to within an environment, within a community, within a system, and then observes, makes an observation, identifies the need for something which is not available. There is a vacuum, and he provides a solution to fill it. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, entrepreneurial activities include developing and launching new businesses and marketing them, often with the goal of selling the business to return a profit. Okay, so let me give a typical example that I like to give in this situation. As an individual, you come into an environment and you find that the people within that community are drinking water from a stream. Okay, and you are wondering, how can people within this large community be dependent on a stream for their water? Of course, you know the challenge that this such a source of drinking water, water will be. A stream where people, that's where they get the water they use for drinking, for feeding, for cooking their food, for washing, for supplying their animals and all of that. With that kind of combination, you know that definitely there is going to be a challenge of disease prevalence. All manners of diseases are likely to be prevalent within that kind of environment, from cholera to all manners of ailments, waterborne diseases, and guinea worm and things like that are likely to be very, very prevalent within that kind of community. And then, of course, you observe that kind of situation and then decide to dig a borehole, okay, dig a borehole to provide portable drinking water for people within the community. You could do one of two things. Either you do that one and then you begin to produce sachet water for people within the community or bottled water. Or you could decide to be philanthropic enough to build tap heads across one of the locations where you have the borehole, so that people can come and maybe pay little money and then be able to fetch the water to use for their domestic purposes. Or you could decide that, look, you are not going to be that generous, but you are going to sell bottle and sell package it as sachet water or bottled water and then sell to the community. But what you have done is that you have identified an existing need and you have provided a solution for it. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay? So for all of us, anytime we want to start any line of business, there's always this likelihood that you'll notice a vacuum within the community, within the environment, and you want to fill it up. You come into an environment and you find that people within that environment depend on another village about 1 kilometer or 2 hours to be able to provide the bakery bread they need for their food. Okay, so and then you decide to set up a bakery within that environment. That is filling a vacuum, because people within the environment, they like bread, but they cannot be able to afford it. So we are able to build that kind of line of business to be able to meet their requirement for bread. Okay, that is an entrepreneur's activity. Okay, an entrepreneur who regularly launches new businesses, sells them, and starts a new one is a serial entrepreneur. Additionally, the term entrepreneur is often associated with startups and small businesses. Any founder of a successful household name began as an entrepreneur. I think we've talked about that one earlier. Give the example of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates. Of course, they all started. They are the founders of major household names today, but they started as entrepreneurs. So that is what an entrepreneur does. So let's look at some examples of successful entrepreneurs today. I've talked about Steve Jobs severally. I've just mentioned him actually. He's a late tech leader who started the Apple computer in the garage with his friend, Steve Wozniak. And he grew up today to be the dominant tablet, smartphone, computer company that it is today. I just told you earlier that the Apple company, the Apple Corporation, is a $2 trillion revenue company today. It started as an SME, a little entrepreneur between two friends in the garage of their parents. And today, it is a major corporation, worldwide, the topmost smartphone company in the world today. Of course, Bill Gates, he is a Microsoft creator and founder who has been listed as the world's wealthiest person. Okay, Bill Gates started Microsoft also in the 70s. Okay, when he had that idea, he had a vision that within the decade, he should be able to place a microcomputer on the desks of every office in America and in every home. Okay, and he approached the IBM machine. IBM machine is International Business Machine. They are the creators and owners of these large mainframe computers. Mainframe computers in those days occupied offices, major floors in office buildings, massive structures. And when he approached them and told them his vision, IBM scoffed him off and laughed him off and said they were not interested. But today, one of the major regrets of IBM is not taking the challenge by Bill Gates. When they turned him down, Bill Gates just went ahead with his idea. And today, we know what it has become. Bill Gates, of course, has moved away from Microsoft now. He has moved into other areas like medicine, where he's involved with vaccine production for the various pandemics and epidemics prevailing around the world. Nigeria just left the full countries infected with polio on account of the efforts of people like Bill Gates. And of course, he's also aware that he's also working on vaccines against malaria, and then of course the current corona pandemic. So that is his new areas of interest. Okay? Elon Musk, I've talked about Elon Musk. He's the founder of SpaceX, an aerospace and rocket manufacturing company. And then of course, Tesla, an electric and solar powered company. Okay? Elon Musk also is a philanthropist who is supporting the world in various other areas of endeavor. Okay, so these are the pictures of Steve Jobs. We lost Steve Jobs in 2011. Then, of course, Bill Gates, who is still around with us and then still doing a whole lot of wonderful things in the world. And then, of course, Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is the founder and the owner of Facebook. He's just barely 33 years old now. In 2004, he started the social networking services from his Harvard University dormitory. Okay, 5 years after, okay, this whole networking system was just within the Harvard University campuses. But within 5 years, over 500 million users were already on Facebook. And today there are over 2 billion users and over 6 billion in revenue today. That is a young man, barely 33, and doing a whole lot of wonderful things in the world. That is the power of entrepreneurship. Okay, so yeah, our Nigerian entrepreneurs. We have people like Tony Elmelu, Adenoga, Dangote, Otedola, Mrs. Awoshika. All these are Nigeria's successful entrepreneurs. Okay, Dangote, we're all familiar with his story. Today, we informed about how he started his business, taking a loan from his uncle, and then 500,000 naira to start his business. Today, he's Africa's richest man with vast interest in cement, sugar, oil and gas, and a host of others. You know, has businesses, cement companies, as I said, in many African countries, carving his own niche, and then, of course, pushing Nigeria's own interest in all of these areas in Africa's global market. We also have Tony Elmelu, who made a fortune in banking. And then, of course, he's empowering so many new entrepreneurs today. Today, Tony Elmelu Foundation is pushing for the next entrepreneur, okay, who will be the next Tony Elmelu entrepreneur. He's providing seed money ranging from about $5,000 to $20,000 to young Nigerians, young Africans, sorry, from all over Africa. He normally brings them together within certain periods of the year. But for the COVID situation this year, we didn't see much of their activities. But if not, on a year-to-year basis, they come together, coming in with new ideas, quit the pitch, and of course, is able to provide the funds for them with the hope that in the next decade or so, we'll be able to have a new set of entrepreneurs that will be taking over from the current crop of entrepreneurs that we have in Africa today. That is Tony Elmelu's own push, and he's making a success of it. Okay, on the screen, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this gentleman, but he is also one of Nigeria's successful entrepreneurs, and his story also resonates with quite a number of Nigerians and resembles the story of most Nigerians. He is Mr. Nnamdi Ezigbo. He is the founder and CEO of Slot Nigeria Limited and co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brands. I'm sure you are all familiar with these phone brands in Nigeria. They are a typical Nigerian company and one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. Nnamdi Ezigbo's story is typical of most young Nigerians. After graduating from the tertiary institution in '96, and then after his service, he went around looking for white-collar jobs but couldn't find any. So he ended up joining a computer repair shop as an apprentice. Okay, and when he qualified, he finished his apprenticeship. He also set up his own computer repair company. Okay, in the course of that, he migrated from repairing computers to also selling cell phones. Okay, in the course of selling cell phones, he found that most Nigerians who come into the shop to buy phones are carrying about 2-3 handsets at the same time. And it occurred to him, why would people be carrying 2-3 handsets at any given point in time? You see somebody opens a briefcase or a shoulder pouch and so many phones in it. Okay, this is because of the typical Nigerian network issues and all that. So he said, well, instead of carrying 2 handsets, why won't you build a handset with dual SIMs? That's how the idea of dual SIMs came. He approached Nokia and said, look, can you help us build a cell phone with dual SIM so that as to solve the problem of people carrying so many handsets in Nigeria? And Nokia, of course, sharp business people, they said, no, if we we'll rather produce more cell phones. The more we sell, the more money we'll make, instead of limiting ourselves by producing handsets with dual SIMs. Okay, so of course, Nnamdi was not deterred. He moved on. He met a young Chinese chap who had just left his job with a cell phone company. He tabled the idea, and the guy bought into it. To cut the long story short, that is how they started techno. And then, of course, Infinix phone brands came eventually. But that is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, he sees a vacuum, he sees the need to fill that vacuum, and then he goes ahead to do something to fill the vacuum. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, that is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, so let's look at the various types of entrepreneurs that we have. Forbes identified 4 types of entrepreneurs. The first is the builder. The builder who believes in building empires and infrastructure. Then the innovator starts a business because of his passion for innovation. The specialist is the expert who packages and through his expertise all manners of various businesses. Okay, then the opportunist, this is the one that sees an existing gap and provides a business to fill it, just like Nnamdi Ezigbo just did as we described it. Okay, so let's expand more on that subject. Joe Abraham actually came with that concept of the 4 types of entrepreneurs. In his book, The Entrepreneurial DNA, he identified that not all entrepreneurs are wired the same way, but that they fall into 4 distinct types. I'm sure we're all familiar with, we all know what the DNA is all about. The DNA is a genetic marker which is prevalent in all human beings, and that's what differentiates you from the next person to you. So no 2 people are the same, not even twins, they're not the same, because we all have our different DNAs, our different genetic markers, okay? So the entrepreneur also has his own DNA, and they are not all wired the same. He was able to identify 4 different types. The first, which I identify, is the builder. This believes in building massive empires and infrastructure. Okay, he's out to build massive, highly scalable businesses. Okay, they're not just satisfied with just personal income, but want to build a massive infrastructure around themselves. I always like to give the example of South Koreans. South Koreans are people who specialize in massive infrastructure. When we hear of Samsung today, we're not thinking of just the Samsung smartphone. Samsung is a massive industry, a massive company that is involved in not just the electronics, but in household matters, in all shipbuilding and all manners of things. Okay, if you go to Samsung, some of the largest ships that you see in the world today are built in South Korea. Okay, all these cruiser ships, oil tankers, they specialize in building such massive infrastructure. The opportunist sees an existing gap. Okay, and provide the business to service that gap. Okay, people like that, they always are always on the watch out for new opportunities within any environment which they find themselves, and they key into it immediately. Richard Branson is an example of such an opportunity, just like Nnamdi Ezigbo. Richard Branson, I'm sure many of you know him. He's the founder and owner of Virgin Airlines. Okay, Virgin Airlines, Virgin Railway, Virgin Music, and all of those things. In fact, not too long ago, he was in Nigeria with Virgin Nigeria Airline. Okay, when he came, he saw the vast opportunity in Nigeria, found that Nigeria does not have its own airline, and then came into partnership with Nigeria to fill that gap because he knows Nigerians travel like mad. Okay, most of them using BA, Emirates, and those international airlines. So he came, but the business could not last because of our typical Nigerian ways of doing things. So he had to pull out of that business. The specialist here, this specialist is a very analytical man, an expert, okay, who is always using his expertise to go into all manners of businesses. Bill Gates, we gave the example of Bill Gates, who was into IT. Today, he has taken his expertise into medicine. And when he discusses medicine today, you begin to wonder whether he is a medical person. Then the innovator. This starts a business because of his passion for innovation. Okay, the innovator will do anything for the love of what he does, and then when the opportunity comes, he takes it. He will tell you he's not in need for the money, but he's there for to provide service to humanity, and tell you that I can do this for free for the rest of my life. You know, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg falls into those kind of categories. The innovator is there, always driven by passion, and that's what drives the innovator. Okay, so that's all entrepreneurs. Why we like to emphasize this section is that we like to ask the question, as an entrepreneur, have you identified what drives you? What's your own DNA? What's it that pushes you? Okay, are you an innovator? Are you a builder? Are you a specialist or an opportunist? Okay, so it's important. We say that it's important for you to know your DNA, to know what drives you. Okay, if you're able to identify your own DNA, what drives you, what motivates you, what pushes your passion, then of course you'll be able to successfully know the kind of business you want to go into, with the kind of business you have the passion for, and then the strategy you adopt to be able to achieve the goals, and then the team that you need to put together to be able to accomplish the goal of that line of business. So that is what the whole essence of identifying the type of DNA is all about. Okay, so it's important that you know what drives you as an entrepreneur, so that you'll be able to know how to guide yourself. Types of businesses for consideration. Let's look at the type of businesses that we want to consider in the country, not just in the country, but across the world. There are several types of businesses that an entrepreneur can consider going into in Nigeria. From when we look at this, most times, many of those who have come before you, we have an idea of the kind of business they want to go into. But by the time we are done with it, they begin to think about it, changing their ideas, changing their opinion about the line of business they want to go into. So maybe let's look at it together again and see whether you have made up your mind, you identify the kind of business that you want to go into. Okay, here are the various types. Fashion. Of course, we know fashion is a very, very thriving business today in the country. The fashion industry is so massive in Nigeria today. But for this COVID pandemic, we know what it is like. We see on a week-to-week basis, the kind of fashion that we see during weddings, during all manners of ceremonies, chieftaincies, and all sorts of ceremonies which you have. So the fashion industry is in a boom, okay? Farming is another major area, small-scale manufacturing, the cottage industry, catering, buying and selling, not buying and selling per se, but anything that you buy and sell that you add value is what the bank normally supports. So if you are buying materials from Kano and coming to add value by changing it to clothing, okay, to fashion clothing, of course it will be supported, not just buying the material and then coming to sell as retail. Okay, event management, that's another massive area also, which goes along with all of this kind of entertainment that we have on a week-to-week basis in the country today. Animal husbandry, that's in the area of rearing cattle, rearing goats, and the like, trying to reduce the incidences of farmer-herders clashes, and then trying to promote ranching business in the country. School business, daycare, nursery, etc. Hospitality and eateries, restaurant, snacks and bar, digital currency investment, photography, publishing, dry cleaning, cosmetic, beauty, makeup, health services. All these are various types of businesses which you might want to consider when going into business. Vocational skills for consideration. We also have vocational skills like electrician, plumbing, carpentry, masonry. Okay, these are also areas for possible consideration when for most participants. Why we try to emphasize this is that we have a major challenge in the country today. Okay, we find that while the construction industry is so massive in the country, a city like Abuja, in the next 50 years will still be under construction. But when we go to most of these construction sites, we find that most of the vocational skilled workers in those areas are not Nigerians. Most of them are drawn from the West Coast states of Benin Republic, Togo, and places like that. You know? So we need to be able to build our own skills base, okay, so that at least Nigeria will be able to find the necessary support we have in that area, instead of having so many of our young men pushing wheelbarrow in the markets, roaming the streets, idling and doing nothing worthwhile, we need to be able to encourage them to acquire the necessary skills to be able to get themselves engaged meaningfully in things that will be beneficial to them and the country. So we would like to encourage our participants who may want to consider going into vocational skills area or build up the vocational institutions where people can be able to acquire the vocational skills required as a very, very viable business for consideration. All right. Okay, before we continue, let's also stop briefly so that before we go to the next stage of considering things to consider before going to business, and then ask the question. We'll finish the entrepreneurship now. Let's look at if you have any questions to ask on entrepreneurship before we go to the next stage, the last stage of this paper. So any questions, please, let's you have any question, David?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, David.
No, sir.
Okay,
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, great.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Egba, Margaret, any questions or we'll continue?
No, sir.
All right.
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay. So,
hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, good day.
Yeah, for now, no question. I'm good to go.
All right, great.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Margaret, the same with you, I believe. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue with our right. Pick the wrong guy. All right. All right, so let's continue. Things to consider before going into business. So what are the things that we need to consider before going into business? You don't, because a friend of yours, a colleague, or somebody in a community or in an environment is in one line of business and you see that he's making a success of it, and you think that you can also equally just simply go into that same line of business. There are certain things that you need to consider before going into that line of business or your own line of business. I'm sure we all have various business ideas as it were now, but what are the things that you took into consideration before going into that line of business? Did you just occur to you, or you just thought about it and said, no, I'll go into this line of business? But there are certain things that we need to have at the back of your mind. There are things that you need to ask questions about. Okay, first and foremost, you have to ask, is there a demand for that business? Is there a demand for that line of business? Okay, don't just go into that business. You have to know if there's a demand for that business. Okay, many businesses fail because the entrepreneurs set up a business that sold products and services people don't need. Okay, so if there's no demand for that business and you simply go into it, you'll find that you might fail because people might not be interested in the products or the services you are trying to provide. So you need to find out if there's actually a demand for that line of product. Okay, others set up a business that produces or sold products and services that people wanted but cannot afford. I give the example of the person who moved into an environment and started a borehole business, for example, okay, and then of course started producing water. People in the environment need the water because they know that the source of water, which is a stream, is not hygienic enough. But the way the entrepreneur set up the business, made it in such a way that the people could not afford it. Okay, if when he dug the borehole and then he started selling the water as sachet water, 10 naira per sachet water, or 100 naira, 50 naira per bottle water, 100 naira per bottle water, then of course, because of the level of economic position of the people in that environment, they are not able to afford that water. Then of course, you have set up a business, people will want the product, but they cannot afford it. Well, if when he dug the borehole, he produced a series of tap heads, okay, where people can come with their buckets, and with 10 naira, they're able to fetch a bucket of water. You see, when you're able to buy a bucket of water for 10 naira, as compared to a sachet of water for 10 naira, you know that the bucket of water at 10 naira will be easily affordable by people within that environment. But if you concentrate purely just on selling and producing sachet water and bottled water, then of course people will need the product, but then they cannot afford it. So you need to be able to be sure that, look, the people whom you are trying to assist, the people whom you are trying to meet their need or fill the vacuum in their environment, will be people who will be able to purchase the product which you are trying to sell. Okay, so you need to ask the question: are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Okay, you need to know, okay, if there are other people in that community who are doing that same business, or you are bringing something new. Okay, you come into an environment, you find that there's already a bakery, and then you come ahead and set up another bakery. Okay, how are you going to compete? Are you going to bring in something new? Is your own bread going to be different from the one existing now? Are you going to bring in another format of bread, or is it the same kind of bread that you want to bring in to introduce? That's something that you need to ask a question. If you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, the business might fail, as you find that you'll be struggling. So if there's already a bakery in that area and then you come with another one, then of course you find that you might be struggling. You might find challenges because you might not be able to have, you might not be able to be able to keep up with the competition. So it's important that you have an idea. Unless you are bringing in something new, it's important that you look for some other line of business. It is important to do some research to find out areas where the competition is not properly serving the customer and position your business to fill the gap. Okay, so you need to find out where the competition is not meeting the needs of the people, and then you try to fill in the gap. Okay, as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate between your product and bring something different to the market and that no one has ever seen. Okay, that is your USP. They call it the USP. That's your unique selling point or unique selling proposition. So here, if you are coming into the market already, there is another line of, there's a competitor in the market who is selling that same kind of product, and then you still want to insist you want to go into that same line of business, then you should be sure that there's something that differentiates your own product from the one that is already in that market. That is what you now call a unique selling point. You must have something unique about your own product to differentiate you from what exists already in the market. And I like to give the example of the experience between Peak Milk and 3 Crown. Okay, when Peak Milk, we all know, has been the dominant brand of milk we have in the country over the years. It comes in can and in vaporized form, liquid form, and then very, very dense. I was selling at that point for 15 naira per can in those early days. And then, of course, from nowhere, 3 Crown milk just came into the market. And everybody thought, are these guys crazy? How are you going to be able to compete with Peak Milk? But 3 Crown did one thing. First and foremost, they did not go producing in cans. What they did was first to start producing in sachet. Okay, started producing powdered milk in sachet. So where Peak Milk was selling in cans, 15 naira per can, they came with sachet, okay, powdered milk, and were selling it for 10 naira per sachet. So they had a target. They targeted the low income level, low income people who could not afford the 15 naira peak milk, but who also wanted milk in their tea. Okay, so it became popular among those people who sell chai. This chai, people who sell tea by the corner, by the street corners, and of course, it became the most dominant brand for people in that category. In no time, they were able to make a niche, they were able to make a name for themselves, so much so that companies like Peak also had to take a cue from them and started producing powdered milk, both in can and then, of course, in sachet. And that is basically what you call a unique selling point. They identified how they can be able to penetrate that market, and then, of course, came into the market with their own unique selling point. And then, of course, were able to break in and got a substantial share of that market of milk. Okay, so finding out something that makes a business stand out is critical to the survival of an enterprise. You have to know what will make your own business different, that stands it out, and then, of course, you'll be able to make the difference. Okay, determine what needs are out there. You need to determine what are the things that are out there that are needed. Okay, what businesses exist to satisfy those needs. Okay, you have to know what the needs are, and then the businesses that are there to satisfy those needs. If there's no business currently satisfying those needs, it could mean that no one has thought about it, like the water business I just talked about. The fact that no borehole company, borehole person is in the borehole business in that company means maybe nobody has thought about it, or that there's no enough market to make setting up that business viable, okay, or that nobody has set up that borehole business because there is no enough market. Okay, then people within the environment are not able to afford it. Market is not big enough for you to start that line of business and then be able to succeed. But at the cost of carrying out the business of borehole in that environment could be too expensive. So these are things that you need to consider. Okay, so maybe in trying to dig the borehole, there's underneath the top soil there is a crust of rock underneath, so that makes digging a borehole very, very expensive. Then that becomes a challenge there. That becomes a challenge. So what you need to do is to be able to make sure that you know the cost of doing business in that environment. Because you dug that borehole with so much expenses, that's why you are reluctant to sell in terms of bucket sizes. Instead, you are deciding to make a create sachet water company or bottled water company to be able to make out, break out, and make some profit in the business. So these are things that you need to take into consideration before going into any line of business that you want to do. Okay, how do you determine what the needs are out there? How are you able to determine what needs are out there? You have to ask questions. Okay, you will be surprised what you find out about people's needs when you ask questions. Okay, so by the time you do a survey within an environment, you'll be able to find out what the real needs of the people within that community is. Okay, so administer some questionnaires. You could draw up some questions which you administer for people across the community to find out what they really need within that community. You'll be shocked to find that people within their environment, they know their needs. Okay, government is not meeting these needs. So if there are private individuals that want to meet those needs, you'll be shocked to find that they will express those needs for you, so that you can be able to consider looking at it and then see if it's viable for you to go into that line of business. You could use social media, which is one of the easiest means today of communicating within our communities. Okay, social media is very, very popular, from the WhatsApp groups to the Facebook to Instagram and the rest of those. All these are social media outlets where people are able to communicate easily and get the necessary information they require in terms of setting up a business. You could read journals, online sites, or you could look and observe things by yourself. Okay, people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs who say were able to do much because they were able to look around and observe things for themselves in that environment before they started their businesses. Okay, so main barriers to starting a small business. What are the main barriers to starting a business? What are the main barriers to starting a small business? Who was starting at this say that that anything that we do in life, there's every likelihood that we might run into some barriers, we might run into some challenges. Okay, we might run into some challenges. So we need to find out what these barriers could be. What could be the stumbling block if you want to start your business, so as to be able to know how to overcome these barriers. Okay, so first and foremost, money. Money is a main barrier to starting a business, and that's why most of you are in this program today, because you have an idea, you want to start a business, but then the money is not there. The missing middle we talked about earlier, access to easily affordable funds, okay, access to funds that at a cheap rate, okay. So money is the most vital resource an entrepreneur needs to start a business, and probably the most critical barrier to starting a small business. Exactly how much do you need to start, and where are you going to get it from? So we need to know how much we need in the first place, and then where you are going to get it from. So these are important and critical things that we need to know, okay, before we start a business. Okay, lack of knowledge. Many small business fail, not for lack of capital, but because the entrepreneurs have little knowledge of the business. That is another area. You might want to start a business because you see somebody is in need, and then of course you say, "Ah, no, I can also do this business." Okay, but you know little about it. You have the money, but you know little about that business. But because you see somebody else has succeeded, you think you can go into it, and you go in and find out, look, there's more to this thing than meets the eye. There's more to this thing than what I think it is. Okay, so really have to acquire some knowledge about that line of business before you go into it. When are the peak and low seasons for the business, for your business? There are some businesses that have low and peak seasons. So you need to know when are the low seasons and when are the high seasons for that line of business before you go into it. Okay, what sudden change in the environment can affect the business in terms of government policy and taxes. You know, we operate in a business environment in Nigeria today where there's always this constant changes in policies. If I was watching on TV some few days ago, when Mr. Magaji, African business, Magaji Agric here, we call him Magaji Agric. He's a Greek entrepreneur, and he was reading out the challenges that farmers have, people in agribusiness have, constant changing policies, constant government policies. Not too long ago, government banned the importation of maize. And many Nigerians went to the banks, borrowed money, and acquired land and started farming large-scale maize farms. Okay, but suddenly there was an outcry from poultry farmers that there's not enough maize for them to make feeds. Okay, and that the poultry industry was under a lot of threat. Meanwhile, the people that borrowed money to start their maize farms have not harvested, have not processed, so they were caught in between. And before we knew what was happening, government changed the policy and opened up the market for importation of maize. Of course, which means that those who borrowed and whose crops were still in the farms were going to be on the losing end, because when you flood the market with maize, by the time they harvest, they will not be able to compete. Okay, so all of these things are issues that people have to be very, very cautious about. You have to be very, very observant. You have to be very sure that you know what you are going into, the kind of policies that are likely to come up. Then we'll have the issues of taxes on a day-to-day basis. New ideas, new tax codes are coming up. Okay, VAT moved from 5% to 7.5%. Stamp duty moved from 5% to 6%. And all manners of, in almost every state and local government, there are all manners of taxes. So there's a whole lot of things about multiple taxation. You are doing any business, or even in the FCT, you find that there are so many both FCT rules, and then the council areas, they are there bombarding your office on the roads and everything, and asking you to pay one form of levies and dues and all of those things. So these All right, sorry again, some network issue. All right, so we're talking about whether your business will generate cash immediately or you have to sell on credit. You have to be very, very cautious about this. Anything that you want to sell on credit, you might run into problems. So it's always best, whatever line of business that you are, you should be able to generate cash and not to sell on credit. Are the products perishable? You need to be aware of that. If they are perishable, do you have a preservation method on ground? If you're into tomato farming, you of course need to know the season, when it will be ready, whether they are off-takers, people who will buy them off you, or you have to take them to the market yourself, and all of those things. So these are things that are very important for you to be able to have at the back of your mind before you go into any business. Determination. You have to develop the courage of a bulldog and maintain the determination that will enable you smash through obstacles, as there will be many along the way, okay? You need determination to keep your focus, pick up when you fail or face rejection, and continue to look for new solutions and strategies to make the business a success, okay? Basically, we know that if you, as you are starting any business, there's every likelihood that you are going to face one major problem or the other. But your ability to remain focused, to pick up when you fail at the first instance, or when you face rejection, will be the determinant of whether you succeed or not. So that's why we say you have to develop the courage of a bulldog to maintain that determination. Don't give up when you face the first hurdle, okay? Pick yourself up. Pick yourself up, face the challenge or rejection, then look for new solutions, new strategies to make the business succeed. But if the moment you hit the first obstacle and then you put your hands on your head and give up, then of course you know you're not going to go very far in that line of business. But to show that you want to make a success of it, then of course you have to be very, very determined, unwavering, unfailing, and then of course determined to make sure that you will be able to make all the headway that you require in that line of business. Fear, our greatest enemy. Fear is one of the greatest enemies of our people. Okay, it's one of the greatest barriers facing people who want to start a business. They ask themselves, what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected? And people say no. So what? What if you fail? It's you. What if you make a fool of yourself? It's yourself. So what if you are rejected and people say no? You pick yourself. It's you. You know, when you are rejected in one place, move to the next place. Okay. When people think you are making a fool of yourself, show that you are not, that you are determined to succeed, and that's why you are pushing on. Okay. One of the major problems and major challenges I like to always say is that in Africa, in Nigeria, we've not been able to overcome fear. Okay. Africans have not been able to overcome fear. We fear the dark, we fear darkness, we fear the unknown, we are superstitious, okay? Things that ordinarily we should be able to do. No, the Western world has overcome fear, they conquered fear. That's why they are able to send people to the orbit, to the moon, and to all manners of places, okay? Here in Abuja, I'd like to give the example of Zuma Rock here. No Nigerian has had the courage to climb that rock. But some few years ago, some people from the Western world climbed it in no time, okay? We built a hotel just beside Zuma Rock there with the hope of making it a tourist center. That hotel was built, furnished, and all that, but it did not operate for one day because of one manner of superstition or the other. That place is a carcass of itself today. Nobody has stayed in that place. It hasn't generated a day's revenue for the government that built the place. All of it because of fear. So if we're not able to overcome fear, there isn't much that we are going to be able to do. So we need to be able to overcome fear and put fear behind us and be able to face the challenges of this world. People live this life only once. You either succeed or you fail. But when you are tied down by fear, by superstition, of course, then you know that there is a problem. I give the example of people like Bill Gates, who was rejected by IBM, but he never gave up, and we had a better for it today. Thomas Edison, who started the electric bulb, he tried it more than 10 times before he succeeded in building the filament that holds the light for us today. Honda in Japan, when Honda started, people in Japan were laughing at them that there was no way they were going to succeed. But today, Honda is a major brand in the world today. The Wright brothers, of course, I gave you the story of the Wright brothers and their aeroplane, okay? People said they were going to fail. They were rejected, but today we are the beneficiaries of the Wright brothers' determination and vision today. Okay, they were rejected, but they couldn't be bothered. They all continued, and today we're better off today. Okay, lack of support. Many small businesses lack support in critical areas of need. These include areas like funding. Few financiers are willing to support small business startups. You see a rich uncle relation and all that. He has, sure that he has a whole lot of money, bundle of money. You see him buy new cars, building new houses, approaching for money. Chances of getting that support is not going to be there. Okay, legal and regulatory support. Here we have this major problem of ease of doing business in Nigeria. Trying to register a company for you to start your own business has always been a major challenge. Lately, the government is working towards reducing making the ease of doing business a whole lot easier for people in the country. Okay, if not previously, before you register a company, you are taking over 3-6 months. Okay, but lately, because of the ease of doing business, trying to encourage more investors to come into the country, many of these loopholes have been chopped away. Okay. In the next few days, you will be doing the business law. You will have a topic on business law, and our lawyer will put you through on some of the regulatory and legal and regulatory requirements for registration and compliance doing business in the country. Okay, staying power. Staying power is like your determination. Okay, most entrepreneurs lack the staying power. So the moment they encounter a few challenges, they give up. Okay, so if entrepreneurship is what you really want to go into, then you must stay the course. You must not give up. You must be patient. Entrepreneurship is not a quick reach strategy, but a long haul. It's a marathon, not a short sprint, not a 100-meter sprint, a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon. It's a long haul. Okay, because that's what we talked about life of entrepreneurship. You have to be consistent, you have to remain persistent, you have to have a staying power, you have to be determined to be able to get your groove going in entrepreneurship. All right, so now the final section of this paper is on sources of funding for small businesses. Okay, what are the sources of funding for small businesses? Why are you in this program? Okay, because you want funds to be funded, you want access to funds. Okay, so one of the reasons for one of the sources of funding, of course, is why you are in this program today. We have identified some of the sources of funding. There are equity, there are loans, grants, cooperative loans, and crowdfunding. So let's look at them one by one. Equity. Equity is an investment made in the shares of a business. Okay, it is made with the understanding that the investor will get a return on their investment and appreciation on the capital when they are invested. Okay, equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs as it is more long-term in nature and gives the entrepreneur enough time for the business to take full root. So equity basically is about people buying shares into a business, buying shares from a business to be part owners of that business. Okay, you could go to a stock market where somebody will float a business and then of course sell his shares there. The shares, people that buy into that, this in the capital that comes from the investors, from the equity people buy, is what they now the business owner will now use in building the business to make it profitable. And equity, of course, like we said, is very important because any time that anybody goes into a business to buy shares, it means that he's ready for a long-term investment haul. Okay, it's not an overnight kind of this. And when you invest in equity, then of course you know that the entrepreneur will have enough time on his hand to really invest for the business to take full root, become productive before it becomes profitable and before they now start paying dividends on that business. So it's important that we understand what equity is all about. So equity funding can come from the following sources: from savings, from partners, from investors, from family. Savings, the first source. If you want to start an enterprise, you should learn to set aside savings from whatever little resources you have. Savings take a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside to start business. Here, there is always a challenge in the issue of saving. In a country like Nigeria, where the salary or the take-home pay, as it were, is pretty low, you begin to wonder how many people are able to save. Okay, if you are on a minimum wage of 30,000 naira, for example, how much are you going to be able to save? Okay, to set aside, and then what are you going to live on from day to day until the end of next month before you now earn another money? So it's always been a challenge. But like we say, savings is very, very important. Okay, you need to develop that habit. Okay, it takes a lot of effort and discipline and sacrifice to be able to put money aside. So the challenge is always that of the individual to learn to develop that habit of putting some money aside for purposes of the rainy day. Partners, this could be friends, relations who have belief in the line of business that you are trying to build, and then of course they decide to use their savings or their monies in buying equity in the business. Okay, investors. An investor is any person who puts his money into something in order to get a return on the investment. So any person that goes to the capital market, the stock market, to put his money into a line of business which he believes in, of course, is an investor. Then of course, there are angel investors. These are private, wealthy private individuals who invest in business in exchange for some equity. The wealthy private, the angel investor mostly is, they are not necessarily relations or people that are known to the entrepreneur. These are people who believe in that line of business, believe in the enterprise which the young man is trying to introduce, and could decide to come in from the side, not necessarily bringing himself frontally, but investing his money, and then also be a part advisor, and then giving ideas on how to run the business, how to make money from the business. These are things that private angel investors are able to do. They mentor the entrepreneur. They provide guidance. They provide ideas on how to go about that line of business. So that is what angel investors do. Okay. So partners, of course, we talked about partners already. Family and friends. Family and friends are usually the first source of investment for most young startups. And that is a common most of you, I'm sure, in trying to go into this business, I'm sure you must have approached some family members and friends and told them that, look, I have this business idea. And I need some money to start it. I have my own kids who have approached me severally when they have their business idea. They come and say, look, Daddy, look, we want to go into this business. My friends and I have decided to put some money together so that we'll start this line of business. We need your support and all of that. So you find that most times family members are the first source of funds. First source of investment funds for most young men who want to start a business. And I'm sure many of you have also tried it before coming out to seek for facility. It's when your family members have given up most of their money, and then they'll advise you, my friend, look, you have to go and start thinking about sourcing your money from elsewhere. And that's how they go about approaching other sources of possible financing. Loans. Yeah, that's why we're here. A business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or fund the business's recurrent expenditure. That's what a business loan is all about. Okay, loan can either be interest bearing or non-interest bearing. In the interest bearing, the borrower and lender agree on a rate. Okay, the loan is tenured for a specific period, and at the end of the tenure or at maturity, the borrower must repay the loan to the lender together with the interest. So loans are normally monies which an entrepreneur can access, okay, from various sources, okay, and most of it is interest bearing, okay, and then of course, where it is interest bearing, that means of course the borrower and the lender will have to agree on the rates. What interest rate are you agreeing on? For this one, for example, it's 5% interest rate for this year. For next year, it might go to 9%. Okay, it is tenure. For this particular one, for example, it's seven years tenure. Okay, at the end of it, we are expected to pay back both the interest and then the principal amount to the lender. Okay, then of course there's the non-interest bearing component loans. These ones are based on Islamic principles. Okay, so banks like Taj and Jais Bank, for example, in Nigeria, provide non-interest bearing loans, which mostly resonates with the Muslim community. And here there are no interest attached to it. There's a profit sharing method to this kind of loans. So, but that is where loans come in. Okay, what are the sources of loans? Where do you get loans from? Okay, where do you get loans from? Just a minute. Where do we get loans from? Get loans from banks. Okay, banks taking money from depositors and lend at a margin to creditors. Microfinance banks are also into the same line of business. But like we said, for this particular purpose, assessing the banks for loans, it's a very, very challenging prospect now because of the interest rate. Okay, but banks are basically the major source of obtaining loans. Of course, you can obtain loans also from a partner who may have some easy money on the side that could also loan to an entrepreneur at an interest, at a given interest. So the partner's loan also normally comes structured with an interest and then the repayment period. So that's these are two sources of loans for entrepreneurs. Okay. Right. So, all right, grants. Grants are another source of funding. Grants are funds given to small businesses by donor organizations. Usually the donor does not retain an interest in the business. However, to ensure that the money is actually being used for the purpose intended, the donor will set up processes to ensure the project is properly implemented. Like you said here, the grants they are not like loans. These ones are given with no intention of the recipient, the beneficiary, paying back. The donor agency normally gives the grants in support of something that it also believes in. Most times they are social enterprises. In many instances, they don't necessarily give out money. Most times they give out facilities, equipment, and then professional advice, and then maybe outlets and things like that. Okay, and then of course maybe send people that will help with implementation and all that, just to make sure that the organization being supported derives the maximum benefit from the grants that is being given. Donor organizations are usually predisposed to giving grants to small businesses who are involved in social enterprises. Yeah, you said it. So grants are given by government organizations, development partners, foreign trusts, not-for-profit organizations, wealthy individuals. Most we have in this country today, we have donor agencies. Many of these foreign international donor agencies usually give out grants to individuals who want to go into some of these kind of entrepreneurial activities. And we have donor agencies like the DFID, the USAID, and organizations like that. And some Christian-based, faith-based organizations which also are able to give grants to many organizations. Some wealthy individuals are able to give grants to organizations that want to start their own businesses. Sources of grants in Nigeria. SMEIS-7The is one of them, a Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency. They're also able to give grants to many SMEs that they are interested in their line of business. The DFID, Department of Finance and International Development of the UK, Shell LifeWire Funds. Shell LifeWire Fund is owned by the Shell Development Corporation. That's the international oil company that operates in the Niger Delta area in Nigeria. Here they are able to provide grants to so many young men and women in the Niger Delta area for them to be able to provide service, to set up their businesses, to be able to build their businesses and providing services in their communities, engaging and employing their friends' relations. This is with the aim of taking many of them out of militancy and out of all manners on common activities in the Niger Delta area, where so many of them are involved in disruptive activities. So with this kind of support from Shell, they are able to divert their attentions away from all these kind of destructive activities, and then of course investing in something that is more worthwhile for all of them and the community in general. Then we have organizations like the Etisalat Easy Business Million Grant, the Tiwad Anjuma that is supporting a lot of initiatives in the Northeast region, then the Bank of Industry, MTN, etc. All these are sources of grants in the country today. Cooperative loan. Right, so let's look at cooperative loan. A cooperative society is an independent group of people who come together to offer mutual support and cooperation to each other. Individuals within cooperatives contribute money, and these funds are either used to fund activities of the cooperative or given out as loans to fund individual businesses of interested members of the cooperative. Okay, so here we find that most organizations actually have cooperative societies. Okay, here these are members of the same organization who come together, set up this cooperative society where they contribute money on a month-to-month basis or whatever time they want towards supporting each other. They could use the funds to either fund the activities of common interest to them, or of course use the funds available in the cooperative purse to give out loans to individuals who want to start their own businesses, or some who want to pay school fees, who want to rent house, who want to buy cars and all of those things. So cooperative societies are very, very popular, and cooperative loans are very, very popular in the country today. In fact, cooperative societies started in the western region of this country, and they are very, very popular outlets for sources of funding for people. In fact, the first one actually grew up to be a major bank in the country today, and has been absorbed in the course of all these banking reforms here and there. But many cooperative societies to this day have also metamorphosed to become microfinance banks because of the kind of funds they are able to provide for those who patronize them. So cooperative loans are very, very important source of loans for most people. Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a new initiative. Okay, it's a process of raising funds from individuals through the internet. Okay, the entrepreneur approaches the individuals through a recognized platform and then make a pitch about their products. Okay, so individuals send in money either as a reward or for a return. Okay, crowdfunding is becoming more and more popular. Some of them, of course, are boomerang in the areas like the MLM that turn out to be a Ponzi scheme. But these are all processes of raising funds. Okay, an individual who has an idea, a very lucrative idea, business idea, who float it on any of the platforms, okay, either the Instagram or Facebook, and use it as a source of generating funds for the purpose of that enterprise that he has in mind. Some could be for purpose of social services, social enterprises to support a community's project. Others, of course, could be for purposes of commercial activities. So we have such major corporations today like the M Global Alliance Global, which is Philippine-based, but which is very, very popular in Nigeria today, that do some crowdfunding, fund pooling on the internet. And then, of course, they have products on the site also. And then as you are able to bring in people, introduce people to that line of business, and they buy into the product, you are able to have buy lines that contribute to your earnings and things like that. And the money people earn in that process is used in could be used in starting their own businesses or building their own line of businesses. So today we have companies like the Forever products, like the Alliance products, who sell all manners of wellness drugs and home appliances, pharmaceuticals, supplements, drug supplements, and all of these things are all done through crowdfunding, and people are able to buy into those products, and then the participants are able to raise money for their own businesses. So these are things that these are very modern ways of sourcing for funds, raising funds, and are very, very popular today, driven on the internet, as it were. Okay, so these are the various sources of funding that we have. We have come to the end of this paper. It's quite been a lengthy paper. I want to thank you immensely for sharing your time with us. So we'll open the floor now for any questions. If you have any questions, you can please ask so that we can now close and then let you go and attend to other things. Thanks for your patience. Right. So we'll open the floor now. If you have any questions, please ask so that we.
Once again, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you, David.
All right, sir. So thank you very much for the presentation, sir. Very easy to understand. In fact, I'm really grateful and glad that someone like you is the one who took this material at the first instance, because it goes a long way in telling us what we should expect in other coming up papers from tomorrow and henceforth. Thank you very much, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
sir,
too.
concerning entrepreneurship, I was trying to think of how do you group people who actually just buy goods for the sake of reselling. Those who buy goods to resell, like retailers. Will you call them entrepreneurs? In the sense that, okay, I was trying to elaborate. For example, you use the buying clothes from Kano, and coming to resell in Abuja and stuff like that. My concept about entrepreneurship before was either creating your own goods or modifying it. And then selling it for a fee in order to of course make income and then probably employ others. So how will you group those kind of people who just buy and then resell, that retailers in quotes? Are they entrepreneurs also? And are they types of entrepreneurs? I would like to understand that, sir. Sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you very much. Maybe you didn't hear me fully when I was discussing that aspect of it. It was listed amongst the type of businesses that we have, and I just read it out, but that's why I emphasize that buying and selling is not supported by the bank because it doesn't see it as an entrepreneurial activities. But what it does is that if you go to Kano and Aba and buy materials and bring to Abuja and turn them to fashion dress, you are adding value. You are employing people to add value. That is entrepreneurship. Yes. But if it's just mere buying and selling, then of course the bank wouldn't even support it because anybody can go and buy and come and sell. But so the moment you are able to add value to that item, then of course you are doing something new because there's creativity, there's imagination, there's innovation, and then there is of course value addition. So those are the things that make the difference.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for understanding that concept too, because that's basically what it is. Okay. All right. Yes. Thank you. All right. Yeah, Eba, Margaret, David has shown the way. Let's have questions. Let's discuss among ourselves. We have a small class today. I'm sure the others are on YouTube, because there's supposed to be more than that here. Right. But any question, you can unmute. Margaret, any question? Please, you can unmute and ask a question. Yeah, go ahead. All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Edward.
Yeah, I don't have any question for today. Every lecture is well understood. I'm very, very charged from your discussion. Everything is well understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, too. I appreciate it. All right. Margaret, anything from you?
No, sir. Everything is clearly understood. No question for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for spending the day with us. We appreciate your patience. It's been a lengthy one, but it's good that you were able to see through. Tomorrow, my colleague will come in. We should be having feasibility studies, but I think we're going to have a swap. We're going to have financial planning and bookkeeping tomorrow. Next tomorrow, feasibility studies and business plan, and then down the line. You'll find my other colleagues very, very engaging too. And we hope to have a very, very wonderful experience with you guys throughout this week. I actually like your spirit, your engagements, and then the questions that I've received from you. I appreciate that a lot. We'll be posting the slides on the WhatsApp platform. And then, of course, the YouTube recording is there, so that at your own time, you can always go in and have a look at it again if there's anything that needs clarification. And then, of course, the platform is always available for you to ask any question that you have, and then we'll be there to respond to it any hour of the day. Thank you very much. All right, so bye-bye. Have a wonderful day ahead of you.